My name's Leslie Lampton from the library, and I'd just like to welcome everyone who's taking part today and welcome our panelists, and especially welcome Marilyn Carroll, who is the president of the the League of Women Voters of Ridgefield, get it right, and she's going to take things from here. So thank you again for attending.
And thanks very much, Leslie, and I want to thank the Ridgefield Library for being such an extraordinary partner to the League of Women Voters and for being such a great asset to the town of Ridgefield. During this pandemic, you all have been extraordinary as far as providing programs for all different kinds of programs for the people of this town, and I know we all really appreciate. So we want to thank you, Leslie, and the entire staff of the library and the volunteers for all the extraordinary work you have done. And to our registrars of voters and our town clerk, I know what a stressful time this must be for all of you. I mean, with all the work you're doing, putting yourself at risk, I mean, it's been a wonderful thing for this town. On behalf of the League and I know the library and the citizens of Ridgefield, thank you so much for doing what you do, for being so civil and professional and collegial. It's lovely to see elected officials do that. So thank you again for participating in this webinar. So let's start and explain why we're doing this. For over 100 years, the League of Women Voters has been the largest nonpartisan grassroots voter registration and voter education organization in the nation. We believe every eligible voter should have a fair and equal opportunity to register to vote and to cast their ballot. As we all face the challenges and restrictions posed by COVID-19, we want to make sure that citizens have all the information they need to register and vote during this election season. That is why the League and the library are hosting this information session with the registrars of voters and the town clerk, who will take us through all the requirements we need to know about to register to vote and cast a ballot for the August 11th primary and the November 3rd election. What we're going to do now is we're going to begin with Mrs. Bruno and Mr. Fogel, the registrars, who will discuss the voter registration process, who is eligible to vote, how they can do that during the pandemic, and what measures the town will be taking if a voter will be voting in person at the polls in August or November. Then we're going to go to our town clerk, Mrs. Leonetti, who will take us through the absentee voting process, how it normally works, and describe how the August 11th primary will be different from a normal process and what might happen in November. And just for all of you who may not know that, we have some news to relay to you today. The Senate, the Connecticut Senate voted 35-1 to allow absentee voting on November 3rd. So some of the questions that we had originally thought about may not be able to be answered, but we will address that as we go through our questions. So for our registrars, for Cindy and Wayne, let's start with how many registered voters are there in Ridgefield and how are they split up, Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, so forth and so on. Can you tell us about that?
I can, since I was in the office, printed this right before I left. As of 4:30 today, we have 18,437 registered voters. Of that number, 6,056 are Democrats, 5,598 are Republicans, 6,497 are unaffiliated, and 287 are in other minor parties, which there's only a few: Green, Independent, Libertarian, and Working Families. But that is a moving number. People register. It's different since I left the office, I'm sure of it. People register online. We process that, so that's an ever-changing number.
And can you tell us a little about those voters? What's the difference between an active and an inactive voter? And can an inactive voter vote in the 2020 election?
Yes, you can. I'll take this one, Wayne. Please feel free to add to it at any time. An inactive voter is really an in-house reference, and it has nothing to do with whether a voter participates.
Okay.
We do not remove someone from the voting rolls because they did participate in any type of election primary referendum. We only remove them when they tell us with their signature, when we are notified through Wendy's office that they have passed away, or notified through DMV or another registrar that they've re-registered in another town or state. So it is not easy to get off the rolls, off the list. Someone has a question.
They don't have audio.
They don't have audio. I'm going to assume it's an individual issue since we're not getting a lot of that.
Yeah,
So,
I'm going to assume the same thing.
Okay, so we create an inactive list, and that is created from, if we do a mailing for any reason, and we get returned mail, so we do not have a confirmation that a voter any longer lives at the address they're registered, we make them inactive. The first 6 months of the year, we do what we call a canvass. We get a list from the National Change of Address Organization. And for us, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne, it's between 700 and 1,000 people who've either moved within town or out of town. We notify them. If we don't hear back from the people who've moved out of town, we do not remove them. We make them inactive. So if that information is incorrect and a voter comes to the polling place, their name will not appear at their normal list of the table by their street, but on an inactive list, and they fill out a registration form and they're reactivated that day.
Okay, that's great. Okay, who can register to vote in Ridgefield?
You want to take this one, Wayne?
Sure. Any U.S. citizen that is above the age of 18, as long as they can actually register to vote if they're 17, as long as they're 18 by election day.
Okay, that answers the question about how old you have to be to vote. So that also means that if you are 17 and the primary is coming up, but you will be 18 by November 3rd, you can register and you can vote in that primary if you are an affiliated voter, i.e. a Democrat or a Republican, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is definitely correct.
Up until November, your birthday can be November 3rd,
Right.
On or before. You'd have to register before that.
Perfect. What kind of ID do you need to register and to vote?
You can use a Connecticut DMV driver's license permit, or the regular DMV identification if you want to register online, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But if you don't want to do it that way, you can use a hard copy of a form, and you can use the last 4 digits of your social security number. But you can also provide, there's many other forms of identification, a current valid photo ID, a copy of a utility bill, bank statement, government check, paycheck, any government ID that shows your name and address. So there's a wide list of what ID is acceptable to register to vote.
Great. Where can I go to register to vote?
Well, it's a really simple process right now. You can, or all the time, you can go to the ridgefieldct.org website and go to our page, the Register Our Voters, and there's a tab on the left side where it says, how do I register to vote? You can go through the process on the Secretary of State's website. That'll lead you to that website and fill out all the information, and you can register to vote there. You do need to have a valid Connecticut driver's license in order to follow that process, or the last 4 digits of your social security number as well. You can also, normally, Town Hall has, in our office, we have cards that you can fill out and mail them in. But right now they are available in the vestibule of Town Hall, which is open to the public. You can grab one of those cards, fill it out, and then mail it in to us, and we'll receive that and then register to you to vote that way.
So the vestibule of the Town Hall is open and they can get a form there. I also believe that the library has forms, but I don't know if they have put them out in their vestibule either. I think the library has registration forms as well. But
normally do.
Yes, but I don't know if they have them out in their hallway.
Marilyn, I would just add that while the Town Hall remains closed, people can always call our office and make an appointment.
Perfect.
We'll meet them at their convenience, like off Bailey Avenue near the handicap parking, if that's a need they have, or out the front door. We keep masks with us, and we're happy to assist people. They just have to call, and we'll do whatever it takes.
So do you think registering to vote online is really the best way to register during COVID? And what do I need to do that? I think you've already discussed that. You've talked about the identification that you need and that you can go right online and do that. We're going to show at the end of the questioning what the first page of the online voting page looks like. So we'll address that at the end.
Okay.
So you also talked about when the town hall will be open to register and how people can do that if they want to do it in person. And what happens if you don't have a license or state issued ID and can't register online? How do you register? And Wayne, I think you sort of addressed that before.
With the last 4 digits of your social security number.
Yep.
Okay, and you can go to the town website and you can get the form and download it and mail it in, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Does that remind me, does the registration form doesn't have the address? So that's 400 Main Street. So you do need a stamp and an envelope. But if you put that form in an envelope and address it to the Registrar of Voters, Town Hall, 400 Main Street, Ridgefield, Connecticut, it will get there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And there's also
Okay, super.
there's also a little old school mailbox right outside the front door. If you dropped it in there, we would get it.
Oh, super. Okay, so we know where that. Can anyone vote in the August 11th primary?
Not necessarily. Only people that are affiliated with the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, because it is the presidential primary for both of those parties. And Republicans also have a state Senate primary for the state Senate 26th district. So they do need to be affiliated with the Republican or Democrat Party.
So we're what is called a closed primary state, which only allows registered Republicans or Democrats to vote in the primary.
Yes.
Okay.
In their party, correct.
Okay. Okay, I can't remember if I signed up for a party when I registered. How do I find that out?
You can go to the
Well, that's a
Secretary
great-
of State's website. There's a lookup there, and there's a link on our website to look it up, and it'll tell you what party you've registered in.
Super. What if I didn't sign up for a party when I registered to vote? Can I still vote in the primary if I register to vote with a party?
As an unaffiliated voter, you'd have to join the party,
Yep.
and you can do that by mail. We'd have to receive it by Thursday, August 6th, or online by Thursday, August 6th, because you can make those changes at that same Secretary of State's website, or in person up till noon the day before the primary. We ask everybody to please do it before that.
Can I switch my affiliation from Democrat to Republican and still vote in the primary, or is it too late?
It's too
Unfortunately not. You're not able to. There is a 90-day waiting period, and that was a while ago.
Okay. What, Cindy, you already mentioned that, but let's talk about it again. What's the deadline to register before the August 11th primary?
By mail or online, Thursday, August 6th. In person, the day before by noon, Monday the 10th.
Okay, if I don't want to vote absentee for the primary, where do I go to vote for on August 11th? And will all the polling places be open?
This is the big announcement from our office. For this election/primary only, just this time, all eligible voters, Republicans and Democrats, who do not wish to vote absentee will vote in person at Eastridge Middle School in the cafeteria. So it's Eastridge Middle School on Eastridge Avenue, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. You still need to bring identification. We will ask people to wear masks when they enter the building. So one polling place for this primary only, Eastridge Middle School.
So you mentioned that people are going to be required to wear masks when they go to Eastridge Middle School, but are there any other safety precautions being taken as far as voting And what are they, so that people can be assured that if they want to go in person, they'll be safe?
Do you want to start, Wayne? I'll add in if
What?
there's any.
Absolutely. I mean, we are going through every precaution we possibly can, of course, with social distancing of 6 feet for anyone coming into the location, into the polling place. We will be wiping down all of the polling booths after every use. All of our staff will have protective masks, shields if they choose to wear one, and rubber gloves if they have, if they have to when they touching or.
Oh, I think you froze there for a moment, Wayne.
I'll just add in the markers that you
I'm
use to mark your ballot will have extras so that they'll be used again later in the day, but not till after they're disinfected. And we will, one of the reasons we liked East Ridge Middle School for the individual single polling place was the interior hallway, and there's an outside cover. If there is a line, we'll still put tape down for the 6 feet apart of people waiting in line, because we'll limit the number of people that enter the physical room. We'll limit that for the same social distancing. And I might add, that is both for the voters and for our poll workers.
Super. Let's talk about the November 3rd election for a minute. There must be a deadline to register to vote for November 3rd. What is that?
October 27th, I believe.
Yep. Right answer.
Or, well, it's partially correct. Also, the state of Connecticut has the lovely election day registration. If a voter fails to register by October 27th, we will, for the for the November 3rd election, we will have election day registration as well.
That'll take place in the town hall, but we seriously encourage people to register by the 27th because it's a little longer process. If you come in on election day, you'll have to register and you'll have to vote there. And the registration process is a little longer, especially if you're moving from another town within Connecticut. We have to call that other town, make sure you didn't vote there already that day. So it definitely takes you longer than voting, having registered by the 27th, which again, the 27th will be open till 8 p.m. that last day. And you can register online, I believe, Wayne, till midnight, right? I don't think they close
Correct.
it.
I think that's right, yeah.
So the 27th of October would be great if people were registered by then.
And also not knowing what October 27th or what, that time, what it's going to look like with COVID and what have you. So we would strongly recommend, if you didn't understand that from Cindy, strongly recommend by October 27th, please.
Yes, we will be pushing that on the league, encouraging people to do that most assuredly. And Cindy, you mentioned why the process is a little longer for election day registration, because you want to make sure there isn't any voter fraud.
Exactly.
So let's talk for a minute about the issue of voter fraud in our election, and what is the town, and as I'm sure you all know, the league's position, which has been verified through a great deal of research, is the voter fraud is so minuscule that it's more likely that you'll be struck by lightning. But what is the town doing to assure voters that voter fraud is not an issue in Ridgefield?
You want Wayne and I to start with that as far as in person?
Yes, just to talk about the procedures that you go through as far as registration and the like.
Well, much of which we've already answered, that you do need to present there's several forms, so it's a wide list, so it pretty much includes, it's a wide enough list that anyone can register to vote. And I might add, if you don't provide any identification, you can still register to vote, but then when it comes to election day, the list of because you have to show identification when you vote again, and that list will be smaller. Then you do have to produce something that has your election day. If you've already registered, I have voted for many years in Ridgefield. When I go to vote, my identification has to have 2 of 5 things: my name, picture, street, signature. Maybe it's 4 things. Any 2 of those. But if you have not verified your identification when you register to vote, then you have to have something that has your name, signature, and address. So it's a little more stringent on election day because you can send that form in with no ID requirement, but the election day ID list is a little more restrictive then. So the state statutes that are already in place won't change because of COVID and have long time been done well in Connecticut. We have had a voter ID requirement for, I don't know, I want to say 30 years. It's never been a picture ID requirement. That's a little bit of a misunderstanding, but there is a requirement of an ID when you vote on election day, and then requirement, as we already discussed, when you register. There's a list of what's acceptable. If you don't meet anything on that, or you just neglect to fill that part in, we'll still register you. You just have to show a little more stringent ID on election day. Anything else, Wayne? I mean, we try very hard to keep our lists accurate. We've removed people who moved, passed away.
Well, and I think Marilyn, that's what you were talking about too, where the process in the beginning of the year where we go through our canvas process and we track down all these voters and figure out where they actually are. Are they still registered in Ridgefield? If so, do they still live in Ridgefield? And I mean, it's quite a process that we go through, and we do. I don't want to say we go through pretty much all of our files that way. So I am confident, and I know Cindy's confident that our records are of the utmost have integrity. They are who the people that live in Ridgefield are registered voters, and they live here. I'm a firm believer in that.
And one of the questions that it had come up was, what happens if I get an absentee ballot and I vote by absentee and then I decide to go to the polls? Is there a little sign next to someone's name that indicates perhaps that they've already voted absentee, or how can you prevent that?
Yes, there is. In the case of this primary, and definitely for presidential, for 3 to 4 days ahead of the election, we will accept the ballots from Wendy on a temporary level, check them in the book. If you voted in Ridgefield, you've seen the little red A, or anywhere in Connecticut. If Marilyn votes absentee, there'll be a little red A near her name. And if Marilyn then shows up to vote in person, the checker is going to say, I'm sorry, Marilyn, but you've already voted absentee. So that's how we check that.
So there are checks and balances, most assuredly, on things like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, now I think what I might do is share, for those who may not know what a voter registration application looks like, let me take an opportunity to try and find that with my shared documents. Hold on one second. Here we go. And let's talk about who has to fill out this form. If you go to 1A, there are a couple of things that some folks might not realize that they have to fill out a registration form. Cindy, you want to address that?
Sure. We do get this question a lot. We'll have people call up to see if they're listed and they're not. And they say, well, I filled out my change of address at the post office when I moved from another town. That doesn't do it. If you move to Ridgefield from another town in the state, or certainly from another state, you would check off new voter registration. If you move within town, you check off address change, and that's important to do because your polling location may change. If you have a name change for whatever reason, or that the same form is used for a party affiliation change or an enrollment if you're going from unaffiliated. So this same form it's a statewide form, and it's used for all 4 of those situations.
So remember folks, it's important to keep that in mind. Because you may think you're all set, but if you've moved, change your name, or you just say, well, I'd like to affiliate with a party or change my party affiliation, you have to fill out the form to do that. And let's talk for a moment about voting online, and we'll give you an idea of what that will look like.
Well, there is no voting online.
There's no voting online.
I know, registering online, no voting online. This is what that is the link to go to get to online voting, if you want to go directly to that. And this is what the first page looks like. And they're going to remind you that you have to be a U.S. citizen, 18 years old by election day, have a valid Connecticut driver's license, learner permit, or non-driver DMV photo ID from the Department of Motor Vehicles. And these are all the things you can do online. You can change your name and address on your current registration and enroll in a political party, or change the party enrollment. And as Cindy and Wayne have mentioned, you can go right to ridgefieldct.org, go on the left-hand side, and you can find the Registrar of Voters site or the Town Clerk site, and you can get all this information. So that's registering to vote. Anything else that you would like to talk about as far as registering?
I just have two things to refer to that we touched upon. Wayne and I are we're confident of our voter list. I was going to say fairly confident. That's not good enough. We're confident about our voting list. But does anyone ever walk into the polls and see that a neighbor who moved a few years ago is still on the list? That can happen. Can I walk in and see that my college student who I know registered at their college? That can happen. And the reason that happens is when people register to vote, they are asked on, and this is, you know, every form is a little different, but they're asked on the form, whatever state they're in, where's the last place you were registered to vote? When they complete that form, completely complete that form, we are then notified by that other state or town, and we remove them from our list. If people neglect to put that information in their new voter registration, then we catch up to it at the canvas. But there are certainly people who never re-register, so we won't necessarily be able to take them off the list. Having said that, any voter who sees someone on the list who you feel strongly they should not be on the list, bring it to our attention. We're not going to just remove them because someone tells us, hey, my neighbor moved or my son now resides in Rhode Island, but we will include them in the canvas in the following year. So we will address it through the proper channels, but we can only address the ones that we're made aware of. And that does happen to us. We come home from the polling place on election day with a list, and we include it in the following year's canvas. So there is that process. And the only other thing I wanted to say, Marilyn, you mentioned about today's vote. And I know you are well aware of every aspect of voting, but I think what you said was today they were going to allow absentee ballot voting for November. Absentee balloting has always been allowed. What changed? Of
course, you're right. Yep.
Was the additional excuse of COVID-19.
Right.
So that's what today's change is.
Okay. Yeah, they've always, I'm sorry, I'm glad you clarified that, because we are what is called a non-convenience or restricted absentee ballot, and I think Wendy can go into that when we talk about that. But we have always allowed absentee balloting, but we are more restrictive than, let's say, 34 other states. So we are one of 14 states who you have to have a very specific reason for not doing that, but that's a great hello, Wendy, introduction so that you're the expert on this. And so
Marilyn, I'm sorry to cut you off. Are we going to answer questions? Because I see there's 3 questions on the live stream. Are you seeing those as well?
We're going to answer questions at the end of the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure because it was pertaining to us. No problem.
All right. Hold on. All right, so Wendy, if you could you describe the normal process to apply for an absentee ballot and how that differs from the August 11th primary? And then I'm going to ask you, how many absentee ballots do you normally get, and how many have you gotten for the 2020 primary? So I think you can address the normal process for applying for an absentee ballot and what the reasons would be for that in the normal world of Connecticut. So Wendy.
Okay. So in a normal situation, a person would apply for an absentee ballot you can get the form from the town clerk's office, or you can get it online. It's available online. But as you said, Connecticut is one of 14 states that are very restrictive, and you must have an excuse to be able to vote absentee. And there are 6 excuses, 6 reasons. You can be in the military, you can be active in the armed forces, you can put as your reason that you are going to be out of town on election day during all the hours of voting. Your illness, if you're ill and you can't leave your home and physically unable. Your religious tenets forbid secular activity on the day of the election, primary, or referendum. Your duties as a primary election or referendum official at a polling place other than your own during all hours of voting, or your physical disability. And you have to give one of those reasons. For the primary this year, COVID-19 was given as a legitimate excuse put on the absentee ballot application for all voters who are eligible to vote in the primary. So COVID-19 is one of the reasons anyone can use as an excuse to go to vote absentee. So in this case, the Secretary of State has sent all eligible voters, all Democrats and Republicans, the absentee ballot, and it's slightly different than a normal absentee ballot application because it has this COVID-19 as the first excuse listed for a reason that you can vote absentee. And it further notes that everyone's eligible to check that box, and that application would be sent to us. We are still able to send an absentee application to someone who did not get it from the Secretary of State's office. For example, if someone changed their party from unaffiliated to Democrat and they want to vote in the primary, they would not have gotten, I got a call from someone today, they wouldn't have gotten that depending on the timing of when they changed their affiliation. So we are mailing the application, or you can download it online. It's on our page on the town website. Under normal circumstances, we would get the application, and then when the ballots become available, we will mail them out. In this situation, for the primary, the Secretary of State's office has engaged a clearinghouse, and this clearinghouse company is mailing out the ballots to all the people that have requested them. The first day that they would have been available to have been mailed was last Tuesday, July 21st. It's our understanding that they may not. I don't know that. It's our understanding that they were mailed out yesterday. So people need to know that they'll be getting them probably within the next few days. But people are calling us because they're anxious that they haven't gotten their ballot yet. Well, it's not because your application got lost, nothing like that. They're going out just a little bit delayed.
Okay. And I would assume that you want people, as soon as they get it, to fill it out and mail it right back or in the Dropbox. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So now you've answered the question about can anyone apply for an absentee ballot? For the primary, the answer is correct, using the COVID-19 reason. And as of today, the governor will be signing a law that allows it for the November 3rd as well. So how do I actually get that absentee ballot? You mentioned, Wendy, one way to do that, they can download it. Is there any way they can come to town hall to come and get an absentee ballot application and fill one out, or is the town hall closed to doing that right now?
Town hall is currently closed, but if you send me an email, if you don't have a printer, I mean, really the quickest, easiest way is to download the application and print it out and mail it in. And something that's very important to include, it's a two-step process to get an absentee ballot. You mail in send to the town clerk, whatever way, the application for the ballot, and then you'll get the ballot, and then you get the ballot back to us. Okay, so it's the 2 steps. Some people will email us the absentee ballot application. The problem with that, now if we're on a tight timeline and we're getting closer to the actual date of the election, once we get that application, we can mail out the ballot if we get it electronically. However, when the person receives the ballot, they need to make sure that they take that original piece of paper that has their original wet signature. We call it a wet signature. The original signature has to go, that application has to go in the ballot envelope and mail back to us. We must have the original application in order to match it to the ballot. Okay, so if a person emails us their application and doesn't send us the wet signature application with their ballot won't count.
That's important to understand.
Very important.
Okay.
Went a little off.
So I'm a first-time voter. Do I have to do anything special when applying for a ballot or when filling out my ballot? Is there anything special that has to happen as a first-time voter?
Yes. Let me find that question. I said no. I just want to answer it very specifically.
Okay, good.
Okay. So if a first-time voter registered with the registrar's office showing their ID, nothing else is required. However, if they didn't present ID at the time that they registered, if they registered online, for instance, and the first time they're voting is by absentee, they will have to include a copy of their ID with their absentee ballot.
Okay. That's good to know because there are going to be a lot of first-time voters and they're going to be, and many of them are going to be applying for an absentee ballot. So it's important for them to understand that.
Now it's included in the instructions, but the instructions are pretty complicated.
Yes.
They're very wordy.
So if someone's confused about that, I assume they can always email you or call the town hall.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
We're there. Yep.
That's wonderful. So you've talked about when we might be getting our actual ballots. That's sort of out of your hands, hopefully within the next few days. For those of us who have sent in our application, that's, as I said, out of your hands. You're not the one doing that. So we will wait patiently for that and send it back right away. And we've talked about filling out the absentee ballot application. Let's, for a moment, just take a look at what the absentee ballot application looks like.
Okay.
Hold on. There it is. Okay. All right, so obviously you're filling out your name, your address, your telephone number, your mailing address, but here is what you were talking about, correct, Wendy? Wendy,
right.
if you're not any of these other 6 reasons for voting absentee, you can check off the COVID-19 spot, correct?
Absolutely. As long as you're a Democrat or a Republican.
All righty, that's
right.
for the November 3rd. I'm sorry, for the August 11th primary.
Right.
We don't actually know what the absentee ballot form is going to look like for the November 3rd election. So we'll just wait patiently and see if indeed there is a separate absentee ballot that states COVID-19 on it and how that people will get that. We don't know am I correct in saying we don't know the answer to that right now?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and as Wendy had mentioned, when you get your absentee ballot application, you get all these instructions. So we're going to help you a little bit about talking about how to fill out your actual absentee ballot by sharing another document. Hold on. I'll find that in a second. Okay, here we go. Wendy, you want to talk about that?
Yes. So we decided to boil it down. This is just a little sheet that we printed out in our office because many people will come to our office and they want to complete the absentee ballot while they're waiting. Maybe they come, so we won't be open the Saturday before the primary, but we will be open the Saturday before the November election. And many people, if they're, you know, people that commute into the city, they'll always take that opportunity that Saturday to fill out their absentee ballot application. So we decided it's simple to boil it down to A, B, C. And in this case, I did use the primary applications as examples. So A shows the absentee ballot. So you complete your absentee ballot, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Okay, Republican is going to be that canary color, and then the Democrat absentee ballot is going to be white. So you complete your ballot, and that just means taking your black or blue pen and filling in the bubble for whomever you want to vote. Okay, and then you fold it, and so the A is for absentee ballot, then you fold it and you put it into the B envelope. There's an envelope that's got a B in the upper left corner. So you take your A and you put it into your B envelope. On that envelope is, there's a little arrow pointing to a line there where you will sign and date the outside of the envelope. Okay, you have to sign it. If you don't sign that envelope, it will be rejected. That your vote will not count. It's very important to sign it. So once you put your ballot A into the B envelope, you seal your B envelope and you sign it and date it. Then there's one more envelope that's marked C. You take your B envelope and you put it into the C envelope. You seal it, and you can either mail it back to us, and our address will be on the envelope, or you can put it into the ballot box, which is newly installed, located at the Bailey Avenue entrance to Town Hall, outside the lower level handicap accessible door. And there's a picture of it right there. It's nice and new and shiny, and it's completely secure. The slot only opens up probably, what, Cindy, a third of an inch?
Maybe, yeah. Big enough for a ballot.
Big enough for a ballot, and you put it in there. It will go into a little basin. The only person that has a key to that box is the town clerk, and I can open it and take out the ballots and bring them inside and put them in the vault every day.
And it's bolted to that cement pad.
Yes, right. It's secured. Yep. It was installed on a cement pad. It's secure, and we're pretty confident that it will be well used. It's already been used for the applications, which that wasn't the intention, but it's, you know what? People come by walking on Main Street, and if they can use that, that's great. We want everyone to be able to vote. So.
Perfect.
Would you mind, Wendy, if I added one thing from the last slide?
Sure.
Things we have seen when we open, because the registrars have the responsibility, well, we hire ballot counters. So 2 things that sometimes happen, thankfully not a lot. If a husband and a wife, or 2 people that live at the same address, both want to vote absentee, totally fine. You must use separate envelopes. Occasionally, we'll open up an envelope and there'll be 2 ballots in it. If we can't count them because we don't know who, we can't count them. So everyone must use their own individual envelope B and envelope C. Also, the ballot, the other thing that we find sometimes, someone will, like Wendy said, neglect to sign it. If you sign it on this, there's a Spanish side and an English side. As long as you sign it on one of those sides, we're fine with that. But also the ballot must be enclosed in that B envelope. That's the other thing we find. We open up envelope C, because we're working backwards, and you find a ballot and an envelope B, and that can't be counted. You have to, Wendy has done a great job making this simple, and it's not that it's difficult, but it has to be followed exactly as she said. So
you
those
really
are
have to follow the instructions this time.
You really have to follow. Our absentee ballot counters and moderator get sick over rejecting something. They are so upset if they can't count your ballot. So please don't put them in that position. Follow the instructions.
Okay. So we're going to reiterate on one more slide everything we just said. So, because it's really, really important. So, as Wendy said, fill out your ballot really carefully. Unlike the polling place, you can't just hold up the ballot and say, "Uh-oh, I screwed this up." That's it. This is your one chance. So fill it out and fill it out with that little black bubble. And make sure you insert the completed ballot into the inner envelope, seal it, and then sign your name on the space with the X on the outside of the envelope. Again, as Cindy and Wendy have said, this is really very important because if the inner envelope is not signed, the ballot can't be counted. Place the inner envelope inside the outer mailing envelope and seal it for this election. The outer envelopes will not require postage. But remember, that's just for this primary. We do not know what is going to happen for the November 3rd election. We don't know how we're going to get the absentee ballot application for November 3rd, nor do we know how, if it's going to be sent to us or if we're going to have to download it. So again, I know Cindy and Wendy, the league, will be sending out information about that when we have more information. And remember that lovely picture of the drop box. Feel free to stop by and, as Wendy said, put it in the drop box on Bailey Avenue, right by the town hall. Or remember, it is prepaid for the primary. You could just drop it in any United States Postal Service mailbox. So that's it for the instructions on how to fill out a primary and absentee ballot. But it's important, please read the instructions and pay attention, as Wendy has reiterated and Cindy. We know some of the questions that we previously discussed were what happens if I'm nervous about voting in person. Without a doubt, you now have the opportunity, both for the primary, if you're eligible, and for the November 3rd election to vote absentee. But let's talk about those college students who, can they apply for an absentee ballot? Some of them will be leaving in August. Can they apply for an absentee ballot now? But let's talk about the normal absentee ballot. They will be away from town during all hours of voting in Ridgefield. And if they are registered in town, can they apply for an absentee ballot now?
Sure.
For the November 3rd election?
Yes, yes.
So on that, Wendy, remind me if I'm correct, on the normal absentee ballot application, it gives you, it asks whether you're applying for a primary or an election. So they would just, if they want to apply for the November 3rd election, they should just mark for that election. Is that correct?
Yes. And something that someone had used the primary absentee ballot for the November election, you really can't do that.
Okay.
You can only use, the one absentee ballot application for the primary, and then you'd have to fill out another one for the November 3rd election.
Super. Okay, that's good information.
And when a college student is completing the application, they'll list their home address. And then when they know, because sometimes they don't know until a little bit later what their address will be. So you may want to wait until you're absolutely sure what that address will be. There is a secondary place where you can put the mailing address for the ballot for this specific election. That doesn't mean you're living there all the time. That's your temporary home when you're in college. But you list your residence and then your temporary address, and the ballot will be mailed to that address.
And I think it might be worth it to mention to college students. We always say it's one of the safest things to do if you want to make sure you can vote is to register in your own town and apply for an absentee ballot, because you don't necessarily know what the regulations are going to be for the state where you're going to college, and it's very possible that they're not going to allow a college student who doesn't have a permanent address in their state to register. So unless you know for certain that you can register in the state that you are or town that you're going to college in, the absentee ballot is the way to go. Okay, let's see. Let's talk again about the security for our mail-in ballots and how you, Wendy, you might want to mention how you match up the application number and the ballot. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So a person would fill out the absentee application, and when we get the application back from the person, every person has a unique voter identification number. And so when we're preparing the absentee ballot to mail, the absentee envelope, that number, that letter B envelope, has a unique number on it. It's just a unique serial number. That serial number is entered into a secure system that has all of our voter information in it, in that person's profile. So we know that that actual envelope for that ballot is tied to that person, and we mail it out to them. We enter all that information and we mail it out to them. When it comes back, we match up that same envelope, that ballot, and we enter that information into the system so that we capture that voters, we don't, obviously, we just capture the fact that we got that ballot back from them.
Super.
There is a small percentage of people that send us absentee applications, but they don't send us the ballot.
Okay.
They just, for whatever reason. So just as far as security is concerned, only the absentee applicant can receive his or her ballot. No other person is able to pick up a ballot for another person. If the ballot is mailed, it must be mailed to the address indicated on the application, filled out by the voter and signed under penalty of perjury. There are restrictions on who can hand in and return an absentee ballot. So, for example, if my husband wanted to return my absentee ballot to town hall, he could bring that envelope back to town hall, but he has, with my ballot in it, okay, only my ballot in it, but he has to show a photo ID of who he is, confirming that he's, who he is, and he has to sign and date, and we have to timestamp when he returned it to me. And there are only certain people that are able to return that ballot for another person. So only my husband or a person in my family could do that. And then once it's received, the ballot is stamped and signed in by the town clerk. And then the ballots are kept locked up in our vault before they are given to the registrar of voters for their process.
And can I assume that the registrars and the town clerks work very closely together concerning this? Can you explain if there are any questions how this all works?
We work very closely, yes.
Literally, figuratively.
Yeah.
We do. For instance, one of the things, if someone is, registered, their ID hasn't been completed, like what I said before about us never wanting to reject a ballot, if Wendy gets an application and she can't find that person on the list to mail them their ballot, it doesn't end there. She or someone from her office visits our office. We look through the hard copies. We look through, did they move? Did they change their name? Did they change their address? To really make every effort to get a ballot to a person who legitimately should have one. So that's one example where we cross-reference our information whenever we need to. I'm stuck for another example.
No, I think those are perfect examples and I think we've assured our citizens that you all are taking every precaution to make sure that everyone's vote is safe. And we have not had issues in Ridgefield concerning this, and I just think people really need to understand that you are protecting their vote, and that we can be sure that every precaution is being taken to make sure that happens. both by mail and at the polling stations as well. I think what I might like to do is just do a quick summary, share some of the things that we've talked about, maybe some of the things that we haven't for the primary and the November 3rd election. So we've just discussed voter registration and what you have to do in order to be a voter. You have to be a United States citizen, a Connecticut resident, and you need to be 18 by November 3rd. And if you meet the criteria above, you can fill out your voter registration form, and there are all kinds of ways to do that, online being right now, if you have a DMV identification, the easiest one, or you can download that voter registration. The voter registration deadline, online and by mail and in person, is for the primary August 6th, in person August 10th, and November 3rd election, October 27th. And for those of you who really haven't been paying attention, there is election day registration, but we really are not going to be happy with you if you wait to do that. And you probably won't be very happy either, because you're going to have to wait in line for a while. And remember, we need to social distance and wear our masks if we do that. But here is the information about registering online. You can go to the ridgefieldct.org website and click on register of voters or town clerk, and you can get all the information you need. The town hall vestibule is open to get that registration form, so you can grab it there as well. Polls for normally, but let's talk about the August 8th primary. There is one polling location only for in-person voting, and that is between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. at East Ridge Middle School. Normally, the polling
August 11th.
August 11th, oh sorry, the August 11th primary, yep. For the November 3rd election, there are 3 locations. District 1 is East Ridge Middle School. District 2 is Scotts Ridge Middle School. District 3 is Yanity Gym. District 4, which is only used for some of us at the northern end, is also Scotts Ridge Middle School, and for the primary, we are considered District 2 for that. So you can also confirm your registration and your voting location by using this link, or again, going to the Ridgefield CT link, and you can find that on the registrar's site. Absentee ballot applications are available, are under normal circumstances. As Wendy mentioned, Connecticut does not have convenient absentee voting. There are only 6 reasons for doing that. However, during the pandemic, the eligible voters may vote in the August 11th primary and the November 3rd, 2020 election by absentee. We've gone through all the machinations about how you need to do that for the primary, and more information will be available about the November 3rd election concerning absentee voting. And I know Wendy will make sure you get that information. Cindy and Wayne will do so as well. Call the town hall if you have any questions, 203-431-2700 for the hours during the pandemic. Normally the hours would be Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. But right now town hall is not open, but we will be notified, I'm sure, through the press or electronic media when that and if that will happen. But as Wendy mentioned, for the November 3rd election, the Saturday before the election, she will be open for absentee balloting. And remember, for more information, go to ridgefieldct.org and click on the Registrar of Voters or the Town Clerk. Did I leave anything out as far as our summary is concerned? You can find this document on the League of Women Voters website, our Ridgefield League of Women Voters, rlwv.org. If you go up to voter service and click on that, it will say 2020 voter information. This will be there. and we will have it on our Facebook as well. And but all this information is on the town website with the registrars and the town vote and the town clerk. Let's for a minute, Leslie, I know you've been looking at some of the questions. Let's see what some of them are. Just give me a moment. I'm not sure that this question is necessarily true, but I'm just going to ask, how do you know the person registering to vote using a driver's license is a legal citizen?
Well, I think that
This person is claiming that the
in the state of
Connecticut
Connecticut,
DMV gives out driver's license to illegal aliens. I'm not going to address that.
well, they do have licenses for drivers only. They are different than other Connecticut driver's licenses by a little orange flag that says DO on them. We also have to keep in mind they are signing a legal document that, you know, that if you do sign it, and if you're not an illegal, if you are not a U.S. citizen, then there's, you know, something will happen if, you know, if you get caught. So it is a different license if they register with that or try to register with that. It's different. Plus, you'll see it at the polls if they show that as their identification.
Okay, thank you. I think we've addressed this question is if we requested mail-in ballots for the primary, when should we expect to receive the ballot? And if it does not arrive, are we still allowed to vote in person?
Yes, if you do not return your absentee ballot, even if you receive it and you then realize you are able to vote in person, if you don't mail the ballot back, you can vote in person.
Yeah.
So if you never receive it or you choose not to mail it back, you can vote in person.
Okay. We don't know the answer to this either. Will forms for the, as we've mentioned, will forms for the November 3rd election absentee ballot application be automatically mailed to us, and when can we expect them? We don't know the answer to that right now, and as soon as we do, I am sure that that the town clerk and the registrars will disseminate that information as often and as frequently
I'm going to
as
go out
they
on a
can.
limb here and say, don't count on it. I would
Yeah.
not count on that.
Just so you'll know, Secretary Merrill used federal money that was part of the big, I forget what you called it.
It was a COVID grant.
Right, the grant.
That is not on the, doesn't
right.
look like it. So, but the form will change. So it behooves you to wait a little bit. Let them,
Right.
because the, like Wendy said, the application for the, it's going to be a different executive order number on it.
Right.
So the form will change. So give it a little bit of time before you can get that new form. Unless you are using one of the other 6 excuses, then use the form that's online now.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. For instance, the college student who is going to be out of town can use that right now.
Mm-hmm.
If I request an absentee ballot for the November 3rd election, will it include all the Ridgefield specific election items as well as the presidential?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that, let's see, so you'll have your state senator representative will be in that, your state senator will be in that, and I forget what else is going to be on the ballot, but there will be all kinds of stuff on the ballot.
Congressional district.
Right, that's right. District 4, our congressional will be on there, and so there will be several things. Everything you can vote on will be on the ballot. What is the deadline for getting the application in and the deadline for getting the ballot in?
There is no deadline for getting the absentee ballot application in. However, I strongly advise everyone to get the application in as quickly as possible because you have to allow for the turnaround time for us to mail it out. And then you to either mail it back or to put it in the drop box. And the deadline for us to receive ballots, because that ballot box that is located on by the Bailey Avenue entrance is considered mail. Voters haven't, it will be checked up until 8 p.m. on election day.
Super.
Now but the November 3rd ballot, Wendy, if I apply now for that, when does that go out?
That goes out 31 days prior to the election day.
So just because someone applies now for their presidential ballot, they can't expect it till
Okay, good point.
31 days in advance.
Right.
And this it has already been answered, but it's a good thing to answer again. Can multiple application for ballots from the same household be mailed in the same envelope?
Applications?
Now it says that applications, ballots you
Right.
cannot, but the application, can they?
Yeah, why not?
Sure, why not? Excellent.
Yeah.
Not the
Okay.
ballot, but the application.
Just remember, it's the application that you can do multiple, but not ballots.
Correct.
The actual ballot. If I vote for November election as soon as allowed, what happens if the candidate I voted for dies before the election?
Maureen. Now, Maureen Bartlett, we're home without our resources available. There's a couple of things that happen. It depends when you say before, it depends when. It depends whether because there's deadlines for them, they can get replaced, but there's deadlines for that, and I don't have that at my fingertips. I don't know if Wayne or Wendy know those. And then there's a thing called a sticker race. So that's a multi-answer to that question, and some of it has to do with dates in the election calendar that I quite frankly don't have at my fingertips. So it depends on the day that the person passes away and that it's verified, and if someone takes their place on the ballot, and then there's a pretty short window. That replacement is allowed fairly close to election day, but I don't know it off the top of my head. But feel free to email us these questions, and we can look up the exact answers too.
Okay, here's a question.
That was
a tough one.
Good quiz question.
Will there be additional handicap parking at East Ridge since that will be the only voting location? In the past, under non-COVID-19 environment, it has been a challenge when trying to park there when they held events.
That's a great question. I believe we have plenty of handicap parking available. No one else is going to be at the school. No other events else is going on. So I believe that we'll be okay in that area.
So we do have a little crosstalk with my partner. We do have some portable handicap parking signs that we could make additional handicap parking available there, and I appreciate. I mean, the building and the parking lot is ADA approved for the number of spaces ratio, but we can add to that. So I appreciate that question. We can add to that.
And we have a comment that says, more complicated than I realized. Thank you. We hope we haven't made it, pardon me, too complicated for you. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. But for those who have not voted absentee before, it's quite a change from going to the polls in person. So we just wanted to make sure everybody understood. You just have to pay attention. The instructions are quite explicit and specific. So if you follow them, you'll be fine. But everybody on this panel wants to make sure that every vote is counted. And that's why we're doing that today. Leslie, I don't know if you've had an opportunity. The library, okay, hold on. Did you answer the chat questions, Leslie?
There was, Andy got back to me and said that the forms will be available at the library. We will be opening on Monday for limited hours every day, but the forms will be available there, after we open. So.
Okay, I think that I haven't had a chance to look at I think we're all set as far as answering all the questions that have been submitted. And any final words from our panelists?
Can I just say one thing? 'Cause
Absolutely.
I did look up previous absentee ballot numbers, and I just think that it's worth sharing. So from the 2016 primary, there was a presidential preferential primary for Republican and Democrat. So April 26th, 2016, we issued 134 Republican absentee ballots, 134, and 119 were returned for counting. So that was what I was mentioning before. We don't always get all the ballots back. Nominees: Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, Donald Trump, and John Kasich. For the Democratic presidential preferential primary, we issued 206 absentee ballots and 196 were returned for counting. Okay, so 134 plus 196. Nominees for the Democrats were Rocky De La Fuente, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders. Just to put your mind in that time frame, right? So far for this year, for our primary, we have received 2,900 absentee applications. And we have 13 days left before the primary to accept more applications. I mean, just for the presidential election in 2016, 699 absentee ballots were accepted. So,
and Cindy, you said as of a certain time today, we had 18,437 registered voters. So I sincerely want to thank you for everything you are going to be doing, not only for August 11th, but for November 3rd. I am so proud to be part of a community that has such outstanding elected officials and who are so concerned about making sure that everyone has the opportunity to vote. So thank you very much. And I want to thank the library for hosting this event, and remind everyone, if you haven't filled out your census form, since this has to do with elections, it depends on how many people we as far as representation is concerned. So everyone needs to fill out their census form, whether they are a citizen or not. If they live in this town, they need to fill out the census. So thank you very much, everyone. I think that's it if we have no further information available. And we really appreciate everything that you've done. So I'd like to say good night, and make sure you vote and register.
Thank you, Marilyn.
yeah,
Thank you
for the
very much.
opportunity.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Appreciate it. And thank you, Leslie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.